I just pray for Nebraska fans and actually Rutgers fans too, and college football fans that tonight's game is nothing like the crap fest that was last night on Thursday Night Football. That's all I hope for. And I think you guys all agree with me there. 464-5685, call or text as always. Again, um, regarding tonight's game, and this is a stat that I was told about, I believe, on Wednesday, which I was shocked by, but it is true. Thanks to Walter for bringing it back up. Walter says last time Rutgers won a home Big Ten conference game was in 2017 against Maryland. So we go back to that article yesterday written by Steve Politi of NJ.com, how he points out that this game for Rutgers is a must win for the fact, again, you're not going to win the East, but if you want to make a bowl game and prove that Greg Schiano is going the right direction, then he's got to win this football game. That stat by itself, having not won a home game in the Big Ten since 2017, I guess I understand why that's being said. And I guess I can go with that for Rutgers. I hope they don't win the football game for Nebraska's sake and momentum here. But I get that. That's pretty sad. That's a pretty sad stat for Rutgers. And if you want to contend and not be the bottom, can you be the middle of the Big Ten East? You'll never be the top of as long as Ohio State's there and Michigan's there. But can you be in the middle? Well, tonight could be a step in the right direction if Rutgers were to win. And oh, by the way, the spread I believe is still anywhere from 3 to 3.5 in favor of Nebraska here. 6 p.m. kick in Piscataway. But I'd like to get more into this game tonight. Again, 464-5685, call or text as always. Here's the question I want to know. And I want to know if it's obvious when the game starts, if it was obvious last week. Because this is an issue I think that hurt Nebraska the last couple years. And they can really go the right direction if they prove this tonight. How hungry is Nebraska to win and to be good? We know they've been close for a long time. They weren't close against Oklahoma. That's the one game, in the last couple of years they really haven't been close in. But if you are truly a hungry team, that hunger itself, that motivation can help lead you to getting over the hump and finding some momentum. And Nebraska just has not done that in these close games. They haven't looked like they're the hungrier team than their opponent. Are they hungry to a certain extent? Sure. But I want to see a team tonight that appears obviously the more hungry team, the one that wants it more. You can tell the way it's going, like you could tell in the second half of that ball game in 2020, that Nebraska wanted that football game more. Rutgers was getting worn out by the rushing attack by Dedrick Mills and Adrian Martinez, and they put them away for a 28-21 win and ended the season despite not going to a bowl game by choice. Nebraska appeared that game, that night, a Friday night game, oh, by the way, to be the hungrier team. That's all I'm asking for. I want to see a win, but I want to see a team that's obviously wants to be there more than the opponent. And I don't know if that's going to be clear, if we can tell off the bat, wow, Nebraska is playing much better football. They're playing harder than Rutgers is. But I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that be the way this looks. But can you be obviously the hungrier team that wants to be there tonight, that wants to come back to Lincoln at 2-1 in conference play, at 3-3 overall, with belief that a bowl game is in sight, and as Mark Whipple said on Wednesday, that why can't we win the Big Ten West? This goes a long ways. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here when I say that if Nebraska loses tonight, the visions of the Big Ten West are gone, because they are. It's the same story with last week against Indiana. If you lost to Indiana, any visions of Nebraska doing anything big this year in terms of winning the West or making a bowl game were out the window. We hate, and Mike Schaefer said yesterday, it's the cliche you really hate, but it's honestly, it is true with this program right now going forward, this season at least, that every week is a new week in terms of you're trying to go 1-0 in the week. It's the oldest cliche in the book that coaches always say. You're sick of it, you're hearing it, but in this program, when you have lost at such a high rate the last couple of years, it really is, you're trying to go 1-0 every week. There's no long-term view. You can earn the long-term view and the hope there by winning tonight. But if you lose tonight, you're technically not out of the chance of winning the West, but your chances are very, very, very slim going forward. Even though you might just have true carnage in the West all season long. From the text line 464-5685. John says this. Good morning, Jake. Rutgers is so bad. What do they bring to the Big Ten? Could the Big Ten tell them that it's not you, it's us, and get them out of the conference? John, no. Rutgers is actually not as bad as people think they are. Look at the sports landscape. I mean, they were respectable in baseball last season, right? They were one of the better teams in baseball in the Big Ten. Basketball, they've been a tournament contending team the last couple of years. Football, they've made some strides. They're not what they were under Chris Ash, which was pathetic, pitiful, hopeless, and in disarray. I mean, they have something going for them right now. They're not great, but they're not horrible. I don't think the Big Ten will ever want to make that push out because of that New York market. They're getting better in their sports, but they still have a long ways to go to catch those other teams that are in the East. Wet Blanket says this, Jake, Nebraska's problem is not and has not been hunger. Nebraska's problem is they have been beaten on both lines of scrimmage. Last week, they won the line of scrimmage and won the game. If they win the lines of scrimmage tonight, they will win the game. That's probably a good point, but Wet Blanket, I would still say that part of that is hunger. I mean, the offensive line, I still believe is not that talented. I don't think they're horrendous like they have been at certain points, but I think there's a motivation thing. There's a motivation factor there. And now that you've won a football game against Indiana where you had a great fourth quarter, you outscored them 14-0. The line made some push, wasn't awful in that fourth quarter. The defensive line had a nice fourth quarter for Nebraska. Like you've had that feeling of what closing a football game feels like, and not against a team like North Dakota or Fordham or Buffalo. We're talking about a feeling of closing out a Big Ten victory on your home field. Now you take that momentum you had, how you closed it out, you go on the road, and can you do the same thing against Rutgers? Can you bottle up what you did in that fourth quarter and even the second quarter until you gave 2 straight touchdowns up to make it tied 21 at halftime? Can you bottle that and bring that to Piscataway? And if so, then you have a truly dangerous team, a team that is starting to believe that, hey, we're actually not as bad as we thought we were in terms of our record. We knew last year we were close, didn't win any of those games, went 3-9. And this year, rough start. Northwestern was a terrible loss in Ireland. Georgia Southern was a terrible loss in Lincoln. Oklahoma, I mean, you're probably losing that game more than not, even though they've fallen apart. Oklahoma was a terrible loss the way it happened, especially what's happened the next weeks after that, where their defense imploded against Kansas State and absolutely imploded in a loss to TCU, giving up 668 yards of offense and 55 points. I mean, the way that loss, the way it happened, looks worse and worse every day. But Nebraska does not have to let that loss define who they are and how this season will go. That's what the rest of the season is for in conference play. Just like Northwestern, it's a bad football team. But you know what? They're 1-4. They had 3 awful non-con losses to Southern Illinois, Duke, and Miami of Ohio. But last week, they pushed Penn State, a top 10 team, lost 17-7. But, they know how to compete in the Big Ten. Their season does not look good, but it's not over. Now, I'm not saying Northwestern makes a push in this and they contend. I'm not saying that at all. I think they're bad. But they know how to win in the Big Ten. They have a Big Ten brand. They don't have the brand against these lesser foe, for some reason, non-con teams, but they can compete in the Big Ten. That's what Pat Fitzgerald does. They fight in the Big Ten. Nebraska's got to find a way to continue to win Big Ten football games, and last week's game against Indiana is hopefully something they can use tonight in Piscataway to channel the ability to close out a football game if it is close, which we all believe that we are close. I mean, I haven't heard many people predict a blowout either way tonight. And the spread is close for a reason because both teams really aren't that good. They're not horrific, though. I mean, they're not horribly bad, either team. So it really, hypothetically, should be a close football game tonight. But I guess we'll see. If Nebraska were to beat Rutgers handily by 10 plus points, then you start drinking some more Kool-Aid here, which is always dangerous. But we like chugging our Kool-Aid here at Nebraska.